Hello and welcome to Crime Watch Daily Updates. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. To the people of Kent County, Michigan, Renee Pagel was a selfless, doting mother of three who always put other people ahead of herself. She even donated a kidney to someone she barely knew. Despite her acts of kindness, one person had it out for Renee, enough to want her dead. Renee and her husband, Michael, split up and endured a bitter divorce and a custody battle. She expressed concerns to her friends about Michael's anger and emotions as well. On August 5th of 2006, Renee was supposed to meet up with some friends to attend an art show, but she never showed up. Her father went over to her home and found her brutally stabbed to death in her bed while recovering from her kidney donation surgery. Renee's family and friends immediately suspected the bitter ex-husband, Michael, but he immediately requested an attorney and did not help police with their investigation at all. The case remained unsolved for over a decade. Then, in February of 2020, prosecutors charged Michael with first-degree premeditated murder. He reportedly admitted to his brother in 2011 that he had, quote, finalized his divorce by stabbing Renee with a military-style knife because he was upset about the terms of their divorce. But get this, the brother said he didn't want to come forward about the confession until their mother died. Detectives eventually found the knife that Mike used to kill his wife by searching at the bottom of a creek with a giant magnet. Michael later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison in October of 2020. He will be eligible for parole when he is 80 years old. Now, let's look back at the case of a generous woman who gave to others but had everything taken from her.
She was a teacher and nurse practitioner by trade, but Renee Pagel was much more than just her titles.
What just warms your heart when you think of her?
She was so funny. She was always slapping her knee, telling a joke, kind, just somebody you wanted to be around.
And that's far from just one person's opinion.
Everybody who met Renee, they loved her. My sisters and I used to jokingly say Renee was out to save the world. Her passion was saving the underdog. She would give you the shirt off of her back.
And a whole lot more than that. When she learned that the father of one of her students was suffering from kidney failure, Renee, who lost her own mother to the disease, donated one of her kidneys.
What did this mean to your family?
It meant you would have a life, not hooked up to a machine. We would be able to do things. We would have our dad.
Renee gave you that?
Yes, Renee gave us that. Renee gave my dad a second chance at life.
And if she'd do that for a virtual stranger, you can imagine what she'd do for her three kids.
She loved her children fiercely. She loved them so much.
But Renee's friends say when it came to the children's father, Renee's husband Michael, things were a little more complicated.
What was your initial impression of Michael Pagel?
He was not as outgoing as Renee. He seemed to be a little bit more in the shadows, where Renee was everybody's best friend.
And after a few years of marriage, the disparities between the two became harder to ignore.
When did the first crack start to begin?
I want to say about 2 years after Renee had their twins. They had had a pretty significant fight. She actually spent the night at my house, and that was the first time ever.
But reportedly, it wouldn't be the last.
I talked to Renee on the phone every single day, and we talked at length about her relationship with Mike. Renee was a little concerned that he had some anger issues. She actually sent him to a physician to have his testosterone checked because she felt like it was not in balance, and perhaps that was driving his anger.
Crime Watch Daily has not been able to independently verify Renee's friends' claims about their marriage. But according to her friends, Mike's behavior only got more troubling as time went on.
She had discovered that he was taping her phone conversations.
That's weird.
That was very weird. That was the tipping point for me, where I said to Renee, this is very disturbing. This would be a deal breaker for me.
Eventually, it's Michael who files for divorce.
Well, he served her with divorce papers, And I believe that was in March. In the summer, he moved out.
But the couple's problems didn't exactly go away when Mike did.
What were the points of contention in their divorce? What were they arguing about?
He wanted full custody of the children, and there was absolutely no way on this planet was Renee going to allow that to happen. And then he also wanted the house, and he wanted her to pay him alimony.
Instead, what happened?
The judge directed Mike to get a full-time job. They were going to be splitting custody with Renee having primary custody.
It should be noted that in Michigan, where the divorce took place, family court records are sealed, so we could not review the documents ourselves. But Renee's loved ones say that was the judge's decision and that it left Mike fuming.
She said, Chris, he's so angry. He expected the house, the kids, and $2,000 a month.
And according to statements given to authorities, these were the thoughts racing through Renee's head during one of the most vulnerable times in her life.
She was even worried that he was going to potentially come to the hospital while she was donating this kidney and do something to her.
Renee did make it out of the hospital okay, but her friend Chris says that on the night she went to see her kids at Mike's, all those fears came rushing back with a vengeance.
She's holding her side out of the hospital, and he had the 3-year-old on his hip. Mike threw the 3-year-old at her, and she fell to the ground. She believed that that was an attempt on her life. She was so scared. She was freaked out. She called me that night, just absolutely horrified and freaked out.
Crime Watch Daily did reach out to Michael for his side of the story. Through his attorney, he denied it ever happened. But Renee's friend Joyce says she also got a disturbing call from Renee that same night.
She had begged me to spend the night with her, which was an odd request. I couldn't because I had a commitment the next day on a Saturday all day, and I absolutely could not.
Who knows how things would have turned out if she could have, but the next day, August 5th, Renee suddenly wasn't there.
She was supposed to go with a friend of ours to a craft bazaar, and she never showed up.
After several unreturned phone calls from friends and family, Renee's father went to check on her, and after that, lights and sirens.
So when you walk into the home, what do you find? What do you see, and who's there?
We were greeted by her parents, who appeared very upset. At this point, I don't think they really knew what was going on.
That's when they led investigators back to Renee's bedroom.
The bedroom itself did not look out of normal except for what we found with Renee.
Which would be?
That she had been stabbed multiple times in her own bed.
A violent end for a woman who was anything but. And for the people who knew Renee best, there was little mystery to the murder.
What went through your mind? What questions did you have?
My question was, when are you going to arrest Mike?
There were no signs of trouble in the kitchen, nothing out of place in the living room. But what investigators found in Renee Pagel's bedroom was the stuff of nightmares.
I would say there was rage in that room.
The 41-year-old mother of 3 has been stabbed multiple times while lying in her own bed recovering from a kidney donation.
It was a bloody scene?
It was a bloody scene. She did put up a fight. The struggle, in my opinion, I mean, there was blankets everywhere. There was a lamp knocked over, a clock knocked over. And she had defensive wounds on her hands and on her feet from obviously trying to block stabbing motions of the suspect.
Unfortunately, officers weren't able to find any physical evidence pointing to her killer, but Sergeant E.J. Johnson of the Kent County Sheriff's Department says the nature of the attack itself speaks volumes.
This wasn't a burglary. No one had taken anything. So, you know, in my experience of 21 years being an officer, it was somebody close, somebody had something out for Renee.
And if you believe Renee's friends, there was only one person who fit that bill.
When I heard Chris, Renee's dead, I knew he killed her.
That he being Renee's estranged husband, Michael Pagel.
Even before you found out she was stabbed, even before you found out the manner of her death, you thought he killed her?
I knew. I held out the very least bit of hope for her kid's sake, that it had been a complication from the surgery, but I knew he did it.
Of course, that's just speculation, and Michael vehemently denies having anything to do with the death of his estranged wife. But Renee's loved ones say their belief is based on information they got directly from Renee just before she was killed.
So just hours before she had died, she was very agitated. The last words she spoke to me were, "Joycey, I can't die. I can't let that get my kids in my house." Those are the very last words she ever spoke to me.
Renee's friends did share these thoughts with police immediately after the murder.
We spoke with Renee's father and her stepmother and friends, and the common theme from all of them was she was going through a divorce with her husband, Michael, and that it was pretty contentious. I mean, the divorce had a lot of issues. At this point, the family and the friends were pointing at Michael as a potential suspect.
But even if they weren't, police always start with the people closest to the victim. So just hours after the gruesome discovery, it was time to pay Michael a visit.
We went and made contact with Mr. Pagel at his residence and immediately wanted an attorney.
So he lawyered up
Yes.
as soon as you went to him?
Immediately, yes.
Which was his right, but Sergeant Johnson says it also put the focus of the investigation directly on Mike.
He didn't want to know anything about her condition, didn't want to know what happened, just stated that he would prefer to talk to an attorney.
So he wasn't broken down? He wasn't grieving the mother of his children being dead?
No, not at all.
But Michael's attorney tells us police know his client is innocent and that the only reason they're focused on Michael is because they have no other leads. He adds that Michael has an absolute airtight alibi and that the reason Mike hasn't gone public himself is because the media is out to destroy him, even forcing him to move away from home. So then, are Renee's loved ones letting raw emotion get the better of them? And was there anyone else who might have wanted Renee dead?
Have you identified anyone else who wanted Renee Pagel out of the way? Or
Renee had no enemies at all. And there were a few names that have come up. For instance, there was a gentleman that lived in the pole barn. It was actually an apartment next door. He was there during this incident. We interviewed him. He has jumped through every hoop that we asked and has been completely cooperative.
And he says every other person of interest they've questioned has done the same.
so everyone else has been cleared?
That we know of, yes.
Everyone, that is, but Michael Pagel.
We definitely think that Michael is a definite person of interest, and many things point in his direction.
He hasn't been cleared yet, so we're keeping everything open. But at this point, you know, in a divorce that, you know, somebody's not getting what they want, that could be a potential motive in something like this. So yeah, our crosshairs are on him.
And Renee's friends say the reason why is obvious.
What was Michael's motive? What would have been Michael's motive to kill Renee?
Well, it's extremely clear to me. I think when the judge said, "Mr. Pagel, you're going to have to get a better paying job," he decided he'd have to go to Plan B because he wanted everything.
And Plan B being?
Murder. She had to go.
And as for Michael's alibi, his attorney tells Crime Watch Daily that Michael was at his mother's house miles away that entire evening, as were all of his children. Still, Renee's friends question how true that is.
Well, OJ had an alibi as well. So, from my understanding, he hasn't exactly been cooperative with the police. I would love for his mother to take a lie detector test. Perhaps he should too. If he is so innocent, why not try to clear your name?
Someone took Renee Pagel's life in the most savage of ways. Now Renee's friends and family are keeping her memory alive in the only way they can.
We've put up posters. We've established a website for her. We've held candlelight vigils, and we've gotten together as friends just to share stories.
But they've also been accused of going too far in their efforts by very publicly and forcibly pointing the finger at Renee's estranged husband, Michael Pagel. In fact, while he won't talk to police about anything related to Renee's murder, Mike has complained to the Michigan State Police about what he calls harassment from Renee's friends.
So Michael Pagel has accused you of stalking him, of harassing him.
And he did.
Why?
I think he just wants this to all go away. I think he wants everybody to forget that it ever happened.
And as for what friends say Pagel considers harassment,
Well, apparently, Mr. Pagel was getting scripture cards in the mail, so apparently his family felt that he was being harassed. And I heard that he even had to move out of the area because he felt so harassed by these awful scripture cards.
Michigan State Police did look into Michael's claims, but say they saw nothing rising to the level that would require action. Either way, in court documents, Mike says he had to move away to protect his kids from constant accusations and media scrutiny.
He has retained an attorney, which he has a right to do. He has not offered any help. He has never called. He has never inquired, offered any assistance. We have gotten nothing from him and, you know, the mother of his 3 children.
It's pretty bold.
Well, it's pretty bold, but what I find odd, too, is, you know, his family members have not really reached out or helped us either, which is kind of weird.
And with that in mind, we decided to try once more to get Michael's side of the story, not from his attorney, but from the man himself.
Loved ones of Renee Pagel say Michael Pagel has moved several times since the murder of his estranged wife. We're going to his home here to see if he wants to respond to those allegations against him. Hi, how are you? Is Mr. Pagel home?
No, he's at work right now.
No luck knocking on his door, so we tried to reach him by other means.
We're calling now to see if Michael Pagel wants to respond to the allegations against him.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
No answer. The phone is going straight to voicemail.
Then, just as we were preparing to leave, Michael pulled up and quickly hopped into another car.
Excuse me, sir. Hi. Michael, do you want to just answer just one question? Just one question, sir. Michael, answer one question. Just tell us, did you kill your ex-wife?
Through his attorney, Michael Pagel denies having anything to do with Renee's murder and says he's just as worried as everyone else that there's a killer out there. He goes on to say he even fears for his own safety.
Do you think you've already found who killed Renee?
It's very possible that we have.
Is Michael Pagel still a suspect?
He is definitely a person of interest and has not been cleared.
The crosshairs in the investigation are on him.
They're definitely focused on him.
But police say they still need that one piece of hard evidence or someone with inside knowledge to speak up.
So would you say this case is unsolved, or would you say this case is unproven?
It is unpunished, but in my mind, it's solved.
But until police solve this case, Renee's friends say they'll do everything they can to keep fighting for closure.
Many people say that it's been 11 years. Maybe it's just best to let it go at this point. What do you say to that?
No. I say no. We need the truth to come out, and we need justice.